Let's talk about communication and listening styles. There are two types of communication styles that we're going to look at: literal and inferential. Now, an example of literal would be, are you going to have that report finished for me by Friday? And inferential would sound more like, hey, how are you getting on with that report? We really need to get everything done by Friday. The literal speaker says what they mean. The inferential speaker says it in the hope that you're going to infer what they mean so they don't have to actually say it. The literal listener won't infer meaning. So they won't pick up on any hints that you're dropping. You'll need to say it how you want it so that they can actually hear you. The inferential listener will be inferring meaning even when there isn't any. So be aware that they may be assuming you're dropping hints all over the place when in fact you're not. So when thinking about how people are listening to your communication, always ask yourself, right, what is my point? Have I actually made my point clear? Have I said it the way that I want it? You can always start by thinking, right, what is my point? I want that presentation finished by Friday, or I want that report finished by Friday, and I want to know that you know that you're going to get it done. Whatever it is that you think your point is, make sure you state it in your mind. And then you can always add in certain, we call them conversational postulates, kind of these softening phrases that just make it sound more courteous. So I just want to confirm that you're on track to get that report finished by Friday for me. Can you just confirm that for me, please? So there is ways to add a softness so that it doesn't sound quite so blunt or direct, at the same time as being very clear about what it is that you actually need. The next type of language that we need to think about is affirmative language. It's really important that you consider using affirmative language if you want people to follow a call to action or do what you've asked them to do. To understand what affirmative language is and why it's important, consider what happens when I say, don't think of a pink elephant. Whatever you do, do not think of a bright, pink, enormous cartoon elephant. Now, the brain can't process negatives. What that means is you can't think about you can't not think about something without thinking about it. Think about that. So in order to literally translate what you just said, I've already made a picture of it in my head, and then I have to unthink it in order to follow the instruction. So when you see the final of MasterChef and Greg says, mind you don't drop that chocolate fondant as they're rushing to get it out of the door, a more helpful thing to say would actually have been, hold on tight, steady as she goes, mind your step. Whatever you can think of that would actually put inside their mind and their what we call internal representations, a picture of what they actually want them to do. So, mind your step, notice that's above you, say it how you want it. And if you hear yourself say don't, then you can always stop yourself and just remember, if you've already said it, so, don't drop it, you can always kind of correct that by adding in the corresponding thing you do want them to do, just so that you switch the picture over. So don't drop that. Hold on tight to that, steady as you go. But if you can avoid saying the don't in the first place, that would be awesome. The other thing that people do is they often say, yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, but, or I hear what you're saying, but, yeah, but. Now, the problem with that word is that ultimately what you're saying is, yeah, I hear everything you're saying, but you're wrong, and let me now give you my opinion. Let me tell you or correct you, or let me, tell you how it really is. you don't need to discount what somebody else said in order to give your version of things. So one of the rules of thumb in affirmative language is don't deny what somebody else just said. Don't negate it. Just add to it. So we say, don't put your butt in someone's face. Use your and. So just say, I heard what you said, and I'm thinking, and then you can give your perspective. So you don't have to negate somebody else's perspective with yours. Just add it to the mix. The next is something called priming and positive language. So often people think positive language is actually affirmative language, but positive language and priming are more about emotions. So priming is a technique where you use positive emotional charged words in your communication to bring about a more positive and resourceful state in your audience. And the reason that this is used is because an experiment was performed to see the effect of using words associated with old age on a group of psychology students. Now, they had to read sentences on a screen, all containing words associated with old age. So the words were kind of hidden amongst these sentences. After they read out aloud all these sentences, they were asked to walk down the corridor and collect a test from reception. Now, the real test was actually in measuring how fast or slowly they walked down the corridor after reading those phrases. Now, compared to the neutral words, the old age charged words caused the participant to walk much more slowly down the corridor. So the connotation of your words, the emotional charge in your words, affects the physiology of your audience. So this is something that you absolutely can harness to your advantage, because your audience is already going to be feeling their own physiology and associating it with you and what you're saying. So by just using emotionally positive words, you can impact their physiology in a positive way and have them associate that with you, which will mean that it's far more easier to influence and motivate them because they like being around you. Another thing to think about is how you generally communicate something. So we have to think about the tone of our communication, and especially in things like customer services, or when you represent a group of people, when you represent an organization or a team, it's super important because your communication, as far as the other person's concerned, is the organization, is the team, if you're spokesperson for that group. And if you're not careful, then your tone then breaks rapport with an entire group of people. So a nice rule of thumb is to just be kind, just to be polite, give people the benefit of the doubt in your tone. An example of this is this letter here. So we regret to inform you that we cannot process your application to register your business name since you have neglected to provide sufficient information. Please complete all sections of the attached form and return it to us. Now, they don't need to use this language because the only effect it's going to have is one of frustration and possibly offense. And please complete all sections, kind of insinuating that, you either made a mistake or you missed some things out. People can infer all kinds of things from the tone and the language used. Now let's contrast that with a completely different way of speaking. So congratulations on your new business. To register your business name, we need some additional information. If you return to the attached form with highlighted areas filled in, we'll be able to send you your business registration certificate within 2 weeks. We wish you every success in your new endeavour. Now, it takes no more effort to write a letter like that, to say it that way, to be polite, to really bolster people's needs for love, certainty, and significance. If you make people feel small, you will lose rapport, you will lose any influence. So every opportunity you get, bolster the relationship, the rapport, and people's emotional needs, and try to help them if at all possible. If you can leave people better than when you found them, the emotional equity that you gain from doing that, from meeting somebody's needs, or at least helping them meet their own needs, gives you huge amounts of emotional credit that at some point you may need to withdraw, you may need to call upon. And it really just doesn't take any effort at all. And I've always been, amazed when you get letters that are phrased with using this sort of unpleasant language and just aren't kind. And of course, it really does make a big difference, especially if you are representative of that organization. So it really is worth making these tiny little sort of marginal gains, because together they build up to quite a significant impact in your relationships, your ability to persuade, and your influencing.